Greetings and welcome to the introductions and basics of warriorhood. This is the first lecture in a little series that exists to give you a little overview of what warriorhood truly is. I am Weird Gecko Man 34, as you may know me. I have invented the concept of warriors via observation, and as such I believe it is my duty to bring you closer to what warriorhood truly is. In today's little introductory lecture, we're gonna cover what a warrior is, what war is, some stats, some attack types, and finally levels, as warriors is a way to categorize combatants in their skill level and behavior. So, what is a warrior? A warrior is a fiery spirit who seeks out combat for any particular reason. They may not be content in life. They may be angry. They may have been cast out. They may have lost someone, or they're seeking for validation or love. It can be basically any motive, but the end goal stays the same: combat. So, people can be categorized in two ways. We have characters which, unlike warriors, are passive in life. They do not wish to challenge anybody and just exist and fulfill their role, whatever it may be. You can kind of see them like NPCs in a video game. I do not mean this derogatory, I just mean as an observation, as unlike fellow warriors, which we wish to analyze, they do not seek out fights. They do not have the warrior's spirit. So, what even is a war? A war is when two individuals engage in a dispute, fight, or any sort of disagreement, and they use attacks upon each other to deplete each other's stamina. Whoever's stamina runs out first loses. Stamina is called stamina and not health, because unlike typical health systems, it passively goes down as combat continues, and attacks only further decrease it or boost it in some ways, as it's not as linear as typical health is in a normal RPG. Losses can also occur if one of the warriors or characters, as they sometimes are in both the fights, gets into a premature loss by doing some sort of move like blocking the opponent, running away, or a few others, but that's for another later lecture, as this is only the very basics of this beautiful craft. We chose VR chat as a medium, as it has a high concentration of warriors which seek out combat, and due to its talkative and kind of personal nature, it gives us a great display into their behaviors, unlike forums or Discord or videos or many games. So this very beautiful illustration our artists have crafted is here to demonstrate how a a war of would approximately look like. You see these two warriors. So, unlike an RPG, there are absolutely no turns. The war off happens spontaneously. Each warrior is free to attack the other when they wish to, and the recipient may deflect or do whatever when they wish to do so. There's very many variables which we'll slowly cover over these lectures so you might fully understand how war looks like. So, let's get to my favorite part of this presentation. That is the stats. Stats are the things we categorize warriors in. What type of moves they use, what type of general build they have, puts them into one of many stats. Sometimes it's multiple stats at the same time, but using those we're able to categorize warriors rather precisely. So let's begin. First we have int. Int is a very common stat. It's responsible for many techniques you may see in a warrior. For example, it's responsible for the witty insults and otherwise higher intellect-based disagreements. They often use analytical skills upon their enemy to quote-unquote fish for critical hits. What are critical hits? Critical hits are attacks that land and do an extra amount of damage disproportionate to this attack's normal stamina depletion level, and by analyzing the target, int builds are often capable of achieving such a thing. They also benefit from high deflection skills, because if an int build ever seems to fail their overall basic intimidation, they quickly fall, as an int build's most important appearance-based thing is their stature, their status, and if you lose your temper, well, your int build is out. Additionally, int builds are often the things that resolve conflicts, resolve wars, without actually depleting someone's stamina completely. If two warriors, for example, are in disagreement, and they discuss it by both being int builds, and one of them realizes, wait a minute, we're actually teammates, then they may stop the fight and instead become party members themselves. What they often wish to achieve in their wars, those int builds, is a display of mental superiority, as fighting someone with your witty bullshit is a rather nice way to display that you're above them. They also enjoy fishing for reactions, as it's rather amusing to see their target do a bunch of rather comedic gestures as a reaction to their endeavors. Also, they employ rage bait quite often, which is a very good way to tell what a int build and what is not. Okay. Additionally, they gaslight. If you see someone gaslighting, that's most likely an int build, as yet again, it circles around the target's mental ability, mental capability to understand things, and by making them question those very basic things makes the warrior an int build. Then we have faith. Faith is perhaps the most common stat in warriorhood, as it's very simple to use. Why is it so simple to use? Well, because it's built upon two things that often spark outrage. That is politics and beliefs, as if two warriors are engaging in a fight and one of them questions the other's beliefs or politics, they often take that as a very personal critical hit, making those war-offs often result in rather heated identity-based disagreements. As such, it's very simple to use because you just need to disagree with the other person to instantly spark a heated debate. Unfortunately, faith has a very critical weakness, and that's that it has the steepest damage fall-off with level increase of their target, as high-level targets basically do not take any faith damage, and as such it's very unadvised to use against strong opponents. Their common goals are rage. I think that's pretty obvious. Validation of their own beliefs, and sometimes even conversion. A few common faith builds would, for example, be Charlie Kirk going up to people and calling them a certain word, which I cannot mention because I think I'm gonna upload this and I hope this doesn't get killed. Then we have charisma. Charisma is a rather strange element. It's a rather strange stat. Why? Because it uses more intimate and sexual types of damage to attack the opponent's stamina. They are also responsible for the formation of groups, as stamina also takes in your as charisma also takes in your overall social status. High charisma increases your likelihood of making allies in the field. As such, it's not just important for getting laid. They have two very big distinctions. There is first of all the genuine and unironic charisma build, the cupids as I enjoy to call them, which do seek out a mate. You know what I mean by mate, I believe. And then there are the more rebellious and deranged, disgust-based casters. They wish to gross out, intimidate, or just, I don't know, make the target vomit. I mean, that's just disgust. I realize that I'm saying that. But unlike other charisma builds, they use those same sexual and sensual desires to, well, be evil with them. Their common goals as such are courtship for the cupids and disgust for the disgust casters. Rather fascinating stat, but again, it also has a pretty bad fall-off, but it is more dependent on the target's capability for love instead of a typical level-based fall-off. Then we get to my favorite stat by far, and that is arcane. Sometimes you can also call it wisdom, as arcane relies on forbidden knowledge, on strange, almost incomprehensible things to cause damage. It's less rage, anger, and it's more confusion and fear. And instead of relying on a typical level scale and fall off, it basically always deals the same damage, because instead it does damage proportionate to the target's soul. And because, again, it is based on this strange knowledge, it can be directly weakened by understanding this knowledge. So, for example, I'm currently casting an arcane attack on you, but by explaining my arcane attack, I'm weakening it, and you might understand and harness it yourself. As such, they are very, very different, and I can't really put a single goal or a few common goals to this category, as arcane builds are by far the most diverse. This also makes it kind of the meta stat on high level builds, as you can do some crazy stuff with this. Some crazy stuff. But again, a few of them are fear, confusion, and another one is those aha moments, those realizations, those grandeur moments where you start to understand the world just a bit more, that arcane builds fish for. But more on that yet again later, as these builds will be probably better explained if you see them in the wild. Then we have strength, which is one of two kind of supporting stats. Unlike the previous ones, I chose the worst color ever. So I'll just ignore what slides I put there and just tell you what strength is. Apologies for this carelessness on my part. But strength is the stat responsible for intimidation. Strength is responsible for how visible and how scary you are in a war. For example, your voice is a strength stat. The more booming and present your voice, the higher your strength stat is in that regard. But it also applies to your social appearance. Are you a power mod? Are you famous? Those all are things that influence your strength stat. And as such, pure strength builds barely exist as its intimidation. It's a showcase of statures. It's a showcase of attention grabbing, and that's also what it often does. In the big war, when there are many parties doing a lot of bullshit, having a high strength stat would allow you to shout loud enough or be visible enough so that your attacks actually hit. So a good strength stat means good percentage of attacks hit. So strength is a very important stat and a good support to have. Besides that, we have dexterity. Again, chosen on a blue background, as I'm a beautiful graphic designer. But dexterity is a VRChat exclusive stat, if we don't consider IRL dwarves, but we're chronically alive, so of course we could consider it exclusive thing. This again is a buffs type of stat, and it's commonly paired with charisma to do rather strange set of moves. Give me a moment to demonstrate. Yeah, there we go. For example, paired with charisma, it would be essentially stroking this Miko. Commonly they're more paired with the disgust type of build, as this is probably rather unpleasant for the target, and this is the way they deal damage. But it can buff other stats too. For example, imagine me in a war moving my hands around. That's a rather common way to make your attacks hit just a bit harder. But individually on its own, it's kind of not that good or useful, as it's pretty hard to imagine a dex build, a pure dex build, unless you directly see one in the world. But Also, it's rather amusing, but dexterity is directly scaled with your fitness, how well you are able to move. So certain individuals may experience lower dex levels on standard as they do not know or are incapable to move in beautiful and cool ways. Additionally, as it's VR chat, your dex stat is directly proportionate to how much tracking you have. So hand tracking is higher dexterity than PC players, and full body tracking is yet again an even higher stat. Their common goals are a display of fitness, and yet again, as I said, above. So now that we have covered the stats, I'll go over the attack types in a little bit of detail. So attack types are the way we word an incoming attack that was performed by a warrior. The standardized way to say it, although it can be switched around a bit, is stating the type of attack, occasionally using the word based after it, if it requires as such, then saying the stat and action performed, if you need to say that. For example, I can say a verbal faith-based attack, or I can say a strength-based intimidation cast. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Or a rather common one, appearance-based faith cast. That's probably like the most common attack. So these types of moves have like many types, which I won't cover. There's very specific, but very common ones include insult based. It's probably the most common. It's where one warrior goes up to the other and calls them a slur or something. That would probably deplete their stamina somewhat. Sound-based ones are rather similar to insult-based ones, but they rely on things such as soundboards or making a sort of comedic sound to inflict damage upon the enemy's stamina. Appearance-based attacks are attacks that often are performed passively. It can be a rather shocking avatar, or actually that's it. It can just be a rather shocking avatar that a warrior might use to inflict damage upon their targets. You can actually spot them quite commonly as being 2D images of something shocking, and that is the main way of doing damage. Physical damage is often related to dex and strength. It's when the target gets directly into the enemy's face and does something like this, for example. It's also used alongside charisma to do very not YouTube friendly things. Intimidation based moves are a very strength based thing, but can also be used with other stats, and it is mostly based around your status and loudness of voice again, so that is very interlinked with that stat. Challenge based moves are also rather common, the last common type I would probably discuss, and those revolve around seeking out your target and challenging them to prove something for you. For example, it can be one warrior going up to another and asking them for a chess match. If the other warrior does not reply, they take heavy amounts of stamina damage. But if they do, then the war continues on the board. So, now we get to the final part of this introductory lecture, and that are levels. So, besides elements and attack types, we categorize levels of warriors. We power scale them from level 1 to 10. Well, that looks really awkward, I realize. But leveling is very complex. It's a combination of every single stat a warrior might exude. It's a highly complex system, which yet again we'll go over in the field lecture upon warriorhood. But for now, I think it's pretty important to know that it goes from level 1 to 10 and that it's logarithmic. It's a logarithmic scale. What does logarithmic mean? If you haven't listened to math classes, it means it's by times 10 basically. In this case, it's the linear logarithm. So a level 1 warrior is 10 times weaker than a level 2 warrior. A level 2 warrior is 10 times weaker than a level 3 warrior. And so on. Proper grading can be done by high level warriors. So if you're a level 7 warrior, you can properly categorize all warriors below that. But as a level 3 warrior, don't worry, you can still attempt to categorize a level 8 or so. It just might be way less accurate, and the high level warrior has a sort of priority speech upon that. But let's really quickly go over the warrior scale. So we have a beautiful scientific illustration, yet again, drawn by a talented artist here at warriors.xxx, and we'll begin at the humble level 1. The humble level 1 is your most common and basic warrior. They make up probably 95% of all warriors, and they are very easily distinguished. How? Not only because they're most warriors, but because they approach the target, they do their one move, then their stamina is already out, and they flee. That's it. They're rather uninteresting in most cases, and that's why there is a great filter, a great barrier between level 1 and 2. Already most warriors fail this initial test. They never go past having one attack where they go up to someone and talk about Jeffrey Epstein, or their one funny little insult or groping type move. And as they're so weak, they never grow past it. They never attempt to reach new heights. And that is the first great filter of warriorhood, which determines if you really have the stuff cut out for this. Then we have level 2 and 3 warriors. They have established some form of basic competence. Their stamina may not instantly run out upon an engagement with any target which is above level 1. As an important note is that equal levels of warriors engage in a prolonged war, as stamina depletion rates are not linear. So if you're a high level warrior and fight a low level warrior, their stamina will deplete way faster than yours, making it a sort of ranking match type system that passively exists in the world. We don't even notice it. But level 2 and 3 warriors have this sort of basic competence of having more than one stamina and also more than one move. They might start to form some basic understanding of a build, which is rather cool. And such, there is a first small filter. Unlike this large filter, this is significantly less crucial, but this is the difference between level 3 and 4, and that is having a build, having a sort of identity. A level 4 warrior has a very precise made build, which does not follow the most typical rules. They may be slightly more unique. It may be a fighting warrior, or a little mister who walks up to people, does a little bit of a and runs away. So they are rather cool to observe, as you can start to see sparks of the artistry of Warhood spring up upon them. But then we get to the second filter. the greatest filter of them all, the one that is unfortunately unsurpassable for most who seek out warriorhood. That is the filter of the soul. To get past this filter, you need to have a radiant enough soul, a beautiful enough spirit to succeed and rise above the masses. Often, sub-level 5ers are referred to as normies for their incapability to truly grasp the world, to grasp the beauty of this art. And as such, many even skillful warriors remain at the level 4, never reaching the rank of a war master. A war master is a higher tier of warrior, which starts at level 5 and goes up to level 7. These ones have passed the soul check and are now free to truly build and understand their passion for Warhood. These warriors typically already understand every single stat rather well, and have as such still specialized into really cool builds. This is where builds start getting unique. This is like truly unique. This is where you start to see one of a kind type moves occasionally. And this is where you also see a rapid fall off in some strategies, as they do not prove effective on this high level elo. Then there is a second small filter. To ascend to a warlord, you have to be very good. This level is kind of level 8 and 9 are kind of the levels where a warrior may approach any target and win. These are the levels where even the most average, non-reactive person may fall to their tricks. This is the level where they are a true force to be reckoned with, and as such are incredibly rare and beautiful. They have truly powerful builds which may inflict lasting damage upon their targets. True veterans of their craft. Yet there's one more tier, and that is level 10. The war gods, the true masters of this craft, the ones who strive beyond all. These individuals are the top at their craft. They are the world's leading experts on their division of Warhood. They are true artists, and that is the biggest difference and the filter between level 9 and 10. Their artistry in their craft displayed through truly beautiful attacks, and now they're even more devastating than the ones of level 8 and 9ers. There are many famous ones across the interwebs. You may think of such ones as Liquid Chris or Grant McDonald, to name 2 examples. Wow, I would name more, but honestly, I don't feel like doing that. But level 10 warriors are magnificent, and we have only very few of them, and seeing one in the world should be an honor. If you see a level 10 warrior, pray to them, thank them for their service, as their art truly drives people to tears. Here we have a few little extras. But anyway, I wish to thank you for giving me your attention and listening to this first introductory lecture to warriorhood. I wish that you may become a very powerful warrior, a war analyst, which understands this craft rather well. And I'll see you again in the next lecture on warriorhood.